you wake up with this feeling in your chest. Something tightens. Something's off. Anxiety. And the first thought, how do I get rid of this? This is where it starts. The war, you against this feeling. And here's what nobody tells you. The moment you decide anxiety is a problem to solve, you've already lost. Think about it. What happens when you try to solve anxiety? You start fighting it. You search for techniques. You breathe deeply. You meditate. You tell yourself it's irrational. You analyse where it came from. You try to talk yourself out of it. And maybe, for a moment, it works. The feeling subsides. You feel victorious. But then it comes back, stronger. Because here's the thing about fighting something inside you. Every battle you win makes the next one bigger. Every technique you use teaches your mind that this feeling is dangerous. Every time you try to fix it, you're sending a message to yourself. This shouldn't be here. And that message? That's the real problem. Look at how we talk about anxiety. We say we suffer from it. We say we need to manage it. We treat it like an enemy that invaded our territory, like something foreign that needs to be removed. But anxiety isn't foreign. It's not an invader. It's part of how you're built. Your anxiety is trying to protect you. That's its job. It's the part of you that scans for danger, that prepares you for what might go wrong, that keeps you alert. The problem isn't that you have this mechanism. The problem is that you're at war with it. Imagine you have a smoke detector in your house. Sometimes it goes off when there's no fire. Maybe you're just cooking, and the steam triggers it. Now, you have two options. You can get angry at the smoke detector. You can try to disable it, cover it up, or constantly worry about when it will go off next. Or you can understand that it's just doing its job, even if imperfectly. Most people choose the first option with their anxiety. They want to disable the alarm. And then they wonder why they feel anxious about feeling anxious, why the worry about worry never ends. Here's what happens in that cycle. You feel anxious. You don't want to feel anxious, so now you're anxious about being anxious. You judge yourself for it. You think there's something wrong with you. You compare yourself to people who seem calm. You wonder why you can't just be normal. And each layer of resistance adds weight. Each judgment makes it heavier. The more you try to solve it, the more attention you give it. The more attention you give it, the more real it becomes. The more real it becomes, the more you need to solve it. Round and round. I've watched people spend years in this loop. They try every method. Cognitive behavioural therapy, exposure therapy, medication, breathing exercises, journaling, and some of these things help, sure. But if underneath all of it, you still believe that anxiety is a problem to solve, you're still in the trap. Because here's the secret. Anxiety doesn't need to be solved. It needs to be understood. It needs to be allowed. It needs space to exist without you, making it mean something about you. Think about a child who's scared. If you tell that child, don't be scared, there's nothing to worry about. Just to stop feeling that way. What happens? The child feels worse. Not just scared, but wrong for being scared. But if you sit with that child and say, I see you're scared, that's okay, I'm here, something shifts. The fear doesn't have to fight to be recognised anymore. You're that child. Your anxiety is that fear. And you've been telling yourself to just stop feeling it for so long that you've forgotten how to simply let it be there. The real transformation begins when you stop trying to fix it, when you stop seeing it as the enemy. When you start getting curious instead of combative. What if this feeling isn't here to ruin your day? What if it's here to tell you something? Not about danger in the world, but about how you're relating to yourself. Most anxiety isn't about the thing you think it's about. It's not really about the presentation tomorrow, or the conversation you need to have, or whether you lock the door. Those are just the stories your mind attaches to the sensation. The sensation itself is older than the story. It's tension that's been building. It's energy that needs to move. It's a part of you that feels unheard. And when you try to solve it, you're not listening. You're just trying to make it quiet. There's a difference. By the way, our shared space of light and awareness is on its way to 100,000 people. Thank you to everyone who subscribes and brings this moment closer. Here's what I want you to consider. What if you've been asking the wrong question? Not, how do I get rid of anxiety? But, what is anxiety trying to show me? Not what's wrong with me, but what am I not allowing to be? Because the moment you stop fighting, something changes. Not immediately, not magically, but genuinely. When you stop adding resistance to what's already there, the whole thing becomes lighter. Not because the anxiety disappeared, but because you're not making it worse. You're not broken. You don't need fixing. Your anxiety isn't a malfunction. It's feedback. And feedback only becomes a problem when you refuse to hear it. The trap isn't anxiety itself. The trap is believing it's a trap. So if anxiety isn't a problem to solve, what is it? It's a language, a way your entire being communicates with you. And like any language, if you don't understand it, it just sounds like noise. Loud, uncomfortable, persistent noise. But imagine someone trying to tell you something important, and you keep interrupting them, telling them to be quiet, to speak differently, to just stop. Eventually, they either give up or they yell louder. Your anxiety yells louder. Most people experience anxiety as sensation first. Tightness in the chest, rapid heartbeat, shallow breathing, tension in the shoulders. And immediately, the mind jumps in with a story. Something's wrong. I'm in danger. I need to escape. But what if we got that backwards? What if the sensation came first and the story was just your mind trying to make sense of it? Your body holds everything you don't express, every conversation you didn't have, every boundary you didn't set, every time you said yes when you meant no, every moment you performed instead of being honest. All of that gets stored. Not in your memory, necessarily, but in your nervous system. And anxiety is what happens when that storage is full. Think of it like this. You have a container inside you. Every time you suppress something, ignore something, push through something, the container fills up a little more. And anxiety is the overflow. It's not about the thing happening right now. It's about everything that's been accumulating. That's why anxiety often seems irrational. You're calm, you're safe, nothing is actually threatening you, and yet your heart is racing. Your mind searches for explanations. Maybe it's the upcoming meeting, maybe it's that text you haven't answered, maybe it's something you forgot. But these are just hooks the mind grabs onto. The real sources is deeper. Here's where it gets interesting. Anxiety shows up when you're living split, when there's a gap between who you actually are and who you're pretending to be, when what you feel inside doesn't match what you show outside. That gap creates tension, and tension, over time, comes anxiety. You go to work and smile when you're exhausted. Gap. You say you're fine when someone asks, but you're not. Gap. You keep doing something that doesn't align with you because you think you should. Gap. Each gap is like a small electrical charge, and eventually those charges build up enough that your whole being starts vibrating with them. This is why you can't think your way out of anxiety, because it's not a thinking problem. It's a living problem. It's about how you're moving through the world, what you're allowing, what you're denying, what you're tolerating, what you're avoiding. When anxiety speaks, it's not saying something bad is about to happen. It's saying you're not aligned. It's saying there's something here you need to look at. It's saying the way you're living isn't working anymore. And here's the part that changes everything. Anxiety intensifies when you ignore it. Not because it's malicious, but because it has to get louder to be heard. It's like physical pain. If you ignore a small ache, it becomes a bigger pain. If you ignore that, it becomes an injury. Your body escalates until you pay attention. The same happens with anxiety. It starts small, a little unease, a slight tension. But you push through. You tell yourself it's nothing. You stay busy. You distract yourself. And it grows. Not because you're broken, but because you're not listening. So what is it trying to tell you? That depends. Sometimes it's telling you that you need rest, that you've been pushing too hard for too long, that your nervous system is overwhelmed and needs space to come down. Sometimes it's telling you that you're in a situation that isn't right for you. A relationship, a job, a way of being that you've outgrown. Sometimes it's telling you that you're carrying something that isn't yours. Expectations, beliefs, patterns you inherited that don't actually fit who you are. But you won't know what it's saying if you're too busy trying to make it stop talking. Here's an experiment. Next time anxiety shows up, instead of reaching for a solution, just notice it. Where is it in your body? What does it actually feel like? Not the story about it, not the thoughts around it, just the raw sensation. Is it hot or cold? Tight or spacious? Moving or still? Heavy or light? When you do this way, something strange happens. The anxiety doesn't disappear, but it shifts. Because you're finally giving it attention. You're finally listening. And when something feels heard, it doesn't need to yell anymore. This is different from analysing it. Analysis keeps you in your head. This is about dropping into the body, into direct experience. Most people spend their entire lives avoiding the direct experience of anxiety. They live in the story about it. They think about it. They worry about it. But they never actually feel it. And feeling it, really feeling it without the story, is how it transforms. Not because you're doing something to it, but because you're finally with it. You're not making it the enemy anymore. You're making it part of the conversation. Your anxiety knows things you don't consciously know yet. It picks up on patterns before your thinking mind does. It senses when something's off before you can articulate why. It's your early warning system, not for external danger, but for internal misalignment. When you learn its language, you start to see it differently. You stop asking, how do I get rid of this? And start asking, what are you trying to show me? And that shift, that simple shift in relationship, changes the entire experience. Because here's the truth. You can't have a meaningful life without anxiety. Not because life is meant to be anxious, but because a meaningful life requires growth. And growth means stepping into the unknown. It means doing things that matter even when you don't know how they'll turn out. It means being vulnerable. It means risking. And all of that brings the sensation we call anxiety. The people who seem to have no anxiety, they're either lying or they've stopped growing. They've made their world small enough to feel safe. They've eliminated risk, but they've also eliminated aliveness. They've traded discomfort for numbness. You don't want to be them. You want to learn how to dance with the discomfort, how to let it be there while you move forward anyway, how to hear what it's saying without letting it run the show. That's the next level. Not solving anxiety, not eliminating it, but developing a different relationship with it. A relationship where it's allowed to be there, where you're curious about it, where you can feel it fully and still choose how you respond. So here's where we land. You can't solve anxiety. You can learn its language. But what does life actually look like when you stop fighting it? It looks like this. You feel the tightness in your chest. And instead of panic about the panic, you just notice. Oh, there's anxiety. Like noticing it's raining. Not good, not bad. Just what's happening right now. This isn't resignation. This isn't giving up. This is something more radical. This is making space for everything to be exactly as it is, without needing to change it right away. And in that space, something unexpected happens. The thing you were fighting actually has room to move, to shift, to transform on its own. Think of anxiety like a visitor knocking on your door. Most people either refuse to answer, hoping it will go away, or they open the door ready for a fight. But what if you just opened the door calmly and said, I see you. Come in, sit down. What do you need to tell me? That's the practice, not a technique, not a method, a practice of presence, a practice of allowing, a practice of being with what is, without immediately trying to change it. And here's what nobody tells you about this practice. At first it feels harder because you're used to the fight. You're used to the distraction. You're used to doing something about it. Allowing feels passive. It feels like you're not handling it. But allowing isn't passive. Allowing is one of the most active things you can do. It takes strength to not react. It takes courage to just be with discomfort. Your mind will tell you this is dangerous. Your mind will say, if I don't fight it, it will take over. If I don't control it, I'll spiral. If I just let it be there, it will consume me. But have you actually tested that? Have you ever fully allowed anxiety to be there without resistance to see what happens? Most people haven't. They've spent so long fighting that they don't know what happens when they stop. And what happens is this. The intensity peaks, and then it naturally subsides. Not because you did something to it, but because that's what feelings do. When you don't feed them with resistance. Resistance is fuel. Every time you resist, you add energy to what you're resisting. You tense against it. You think about it. You worry about when it will come back. You create a whole mental structure around avoiding it. And all of that takes energy. Energy that could be used for living. When you stop resisting, that energy becomes available again. You're not spending all day managing your internal state. You're not constantly monitoring yourself for signs of anxiety. You're not living on guard, you're just living. This doesn't mean anxiety never shows up. It means when it does, you're not derailed by it. You're not defined by it. You can feel anxious, and still have a conversation. You can feel anxious and still go to work. You can feel anxious and still be present with someone you love. The anxiety is there, but it's not running the show. Here's a question worth sitting with. What would you do differently if you weren't trying to avoid anxiety? Where would you go? What would you say? Who would you be? Most people's lives are shaped by anxiety avoidance. They make choices based on what will keep them comfortable, what will minimise risk, what will keep the feeling at bay. But those choices often lead away from what actually matters. Away from meaning, away from connection, away from growth. And then ironically, that creates more anxiety. Because deep down, you know you're not living the life you could be living. You're living the life that keeps you safe. Safety and aliveness are not the same thing. You can be completely safe and completely dead inside. You can have a life with no risk and no meaning. Or you can have a life where you feel things deeply, including discomfort, and actually live. The people who seem most alive aren't the ones without anxiety. They're the ones who've made peace with it, who've learned to carry it without letting it stop them, who've developed the capacity to feel uncomfortable and move forward anyway. That's resilience. Not the absence of difficult feelings, but the ability to have them without collapsing. To feel the tremor and still stand. To hear the inner noise and still choose based on what matters. And here is the thing about choice. When you're not at war with anxiety, you actually have more choice. Because you're not in reaction mode. You're not just trying to escape the feeling. You can pause. You can feel what's there. You can ask yourself, okay, what do I actually want to do here? Not to avoid this feeling, but because it aligns with who I am. That's freedom. Not freedom from anxiety, freedom to live fully, even with anxiety present. This might sound simple, but it's not easy, because you're undoing years, maybe decades of conditioning. You've been taught that anxiety is the enemy, that you should feel calm and confident all the time, that if you're anxious, something is wrong with you. Unlearning that takes time. But every moment you choose presence over resistance, you're rewiring. You're teaching yourself a new way. You're proving to yourself that you can feel this and be okay. That you can sit with discomfort and not die. That you're bigger than any feeling passing through you. And gradually, the relationship changes. Anxiety stops being this huge, threatening thing. It becomes just another sensation, another wave in the ocean of your experience. Sometimes bigger, sometimes smaller. But just a wave, not the whole ocean. You are the ocean, not the wave. You're the space in which all of this happens. The awareness that notices anxiety, but isn't defined by it. The presence that's here before anxiety arrives and remains after it leaves. When you touch that, even for a moment, everything shifts. Because you realise you were never broken, you were never the problem. You were just lost in the wave, thinking you were only the wave. So here's the invitation. Stop trying to solve your anxiety. Stop making it wrong. Stop fighting what's already here. Instead, get curious. Listen. Allow. Make space. And watch what happens when you stop being at war with yourself. You might find that the thing you've been running from your whole life was just trying to bring you home. If this video changed something in you, write in the comments, I allow what is. Write it as your promise to yourself. Nobody